We need to realize that with manifestation, there is power in numbers. So when more people are focusing on something, there's more chance of it happening.
This podcast is all about authentic conversations. It's all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and expand in your life and become your authentic self, this is the podcast for you. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Authentic Talks. I'm your host, Shanta. I'm excited because I do feel that we have a really amazing show for you this week, and I'm looking forward to you guys hearing all about it. But before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit and share some things that have been happening with me. Last week, I was able to start my new job, and I'm really excited about that and looking forward to so much more with the new company, and it seems great so far, and I do have every intent of expecting nothing but the best. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Also, this past weekend, I got a chance to spend about 20 hours with some amazing people in class. And so that was really exciting. One of the things that's really cool about life is that it feels so good when you're learning something new every day. It could be sometimes some of the smallest things to the most grand. It just feels good to learn, and I love that. I also was able to get assigned a new book to read, so I'm excited about that. And this one I have absolutely no choice but to read because there's a grade associated with it and tons of work that I have to do after that. So I'm really excited. I know if you guys heard Evicting Fear, you heard everything that unfolded with me, and a part of that was going back to school, and so that's what I've done, and I'm still in right now, and I will finish, so I'm really excited about that. For those of you who do celebrate Valentine's Day, Friday's Valentine's Day, and you get to do something super special. Last week I had my guest on the show, which was my husband Scott, and I still have not asked him to go out on a date yet. I'm waiting where he thinks that I actually forgot, and then I'm going to surprise him with that. You guys, this week we get into synchronicities and the different types of synchronicities that you can encounter. We also get into karma, and we talk a little bit about allpatheyism and so much more. You don't want to miss this show. Our guest this week is all the way on the other side of the world. Please welcome Charbel Tadros, who is an author. He's a website designer, a personality coach. He is the CEO at Future Academy, and he's also the president of the Sydney Autism Community Club. Coming in this week all the way from Australia, please welcome Charbel to the show. Hi, Charbel.
Hey, Shanta.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. There's so many different things that you have going on that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to start with your podcast. If you could share the name of the podcast and what it's all about for those that may have not had a chance to hear the podcast yet.
Yeah, sure. It's great for me to be on Authentic Talks as well with you. And my podcast is called SIGN. So SIGN. It stands for Spiritual Indicator for Growth Now. The main idea of the podcast is to help listeners find synchronicities that they need in their daily lives. So it might be something that you're thinking about, and then suddenly I might be talking about it on the podcast. Or if it's something that is maybe in the background of your mind and then it comes to the fore because you heard me talk about it. So it helps you find these signs in your life that point you in the right direction.
When I heard one of them, I heard the first show, I was like, heck yeah. I was like, I'm feeling this podcast. I was like, it's on point. And it's kind of cool because they're not really long, like where they're like 4 hours long or anything like that. They're quick, and it's packed with information where you're able to walk away going, wow, that was really good.
I try as much as possible to keep it under 15 minutes. So I try to pack as much as possible in that time. That way, whatever you listen to, it's easy for you to remember it and it's easy for you to identify with it.
So I know that you are an author. And you
Hmm.
have several books that you have
Yeah,
been able to write. What inspires you?
it depends. Each time I'm inspired by something different. Like for my first book, for example, The Destined Journey, I was actually inspired by several things that were happening in my life, but mainly for that one, I was inspired by another book by James Redfield. It's called The Celestine Prophecy. So, yeah, the signs that he talks about, the synchronicities that he talks about, I was able to combine them into something different. And I was also inspired by Rudolf Steiner's work. So I kind of mixed them together and I was able to come up with something that many people found quite interesting.
You have 7 books
Yeah.
according to what I'm looking at, and they all have topics that are interesting, which we're going to touch upon. I feel like you almost make the process seem like it's easy. What is that process like writing a book?
For me, yeah, I don't see it as difficult, but that's maybe because of my autism. So I have Asperger's syndrome, and when I focus on something, I just finish it in one go, or I try to finish it as fast as possible. The first book, I wrote it in 2 weeks, but during these 2 weeks, I was in what I would call a hermit mode, as in nothing else, just this book. So I'd go to work, get back home, write. Go to work, get back home, write. That's it.
Sounds like that there's some benefits to that because a lot of us need to focus in that same way. What is developing the spirit
The spirit
personality?
personality. Yeah, this book is the last book I wrote a few years ago, and it was quite successful. It helps people identify what kind of personality they have and what else they need to do in order to develop other personalities. So, there's I classify personalities based on the elements in nature. And this is not something that I invented. This is something that I took from Socrates and Rudolf Steiner. But I also added to it another dimension of personality that they haven't brushed on. See, like, for example, there's the fire personality, that's the leader. He's a person, he's like fire. He just burns and keeps going. He doesn't stop unless something by force makes him stop. The water personality is the one who's patient. It's like water. Water just keeps going and going and going until something blocks its path. And if something blocks its path, it just stays there until someone else removes it for her. The wind personality is a very friendly and communicative personality. In one place, it doesn't stay in one shape for long. And the earth personality is deep and unmoving. So it takes a lot of work to make it change, and it kind of symbolizes wisdom. So each personality has positive aspects and negative aspects. But if we get rid of the negative aspects through practice and through putting ourselves in challenges that helps us develop these personalities, then we are able to develop these 4 personalities, which in essence helps us unlock what I call the spirit personality, which is a personality that is kind of perfect.
In the book, are there like tests that you take and try to figure out which one you fit best in?
There's both. So there is different criteria for each personality and how to develop it. And there's also a test in the book that helps you find out what your personality is. On my website, there is another personality test which is based on the one that's in the book, but it's more advanced. So I did more tests. I tested it on more people, especially after I published the book, and I incorporated whatever feedback they gave me into a, an automated test on the website that keeps improving and is more accurate for lots of people.
You have
Yeah,
so
it's
many.
available on Amazon. Yeah.
I love books and they love me. My hands are they turn into glue where I just can't put them down, you know. And I this other book that I'm looking at, it's called When the Spirit Speaks.
Yeah, this is a collection of different poems that of them are spiritual in nature, others are darker or sometimes more romantic. It depends on the mood I was in at the time.
Of all of your books, which one is your absolute favorite? Or is that like asking, do you have, like, if you have kids, which one is your favorite?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but I would say it's between my first and my last. So it's my
Okay.
elder and my youngest.
Because the first will always have a special place, and then the last, somewhere in
Yeah.
between. You have another one called Divine Diaries. It's a very informative website. There's so much on there. If you have a club
Yeah.
or
Yeah. I'm actually a manager of a college in Sydney. It's a vocational college, and I'm also the current president of the Sydney Autism Community Lions Club. So it's a Lions Club that's just dedicated for individuals with autism.
and you are a coach. What type of coach are you?
It's based on my latest book, which is about the spirit personality. So I try to help people develop the different aspects of their personality so that they can be as close as possible to the perfect version of themselves.
I see something on your website. It says Tadros Publishing.
When I was back in Lebanon, I had my own publishing company. So I used to publish books for myself and for other people. We published for around 30 authors. I still have someone running it back in Lebanon.
Oh, so if someone wanted to write a book, they could click there and get it.
They can get in touch with someone who can help them through.
Wow, that's awesome. You also coach other people to become life coaches.
Yes,
And if they wanted to do that, they could get in touch with you through the website, which we're going to share with
through the
them.
website.
Okay, and we'll share
Yep.
with them a little bit later. Can you explain a little bit about allpatheism?
Allpatheyism. It comes from all paths. So it's
Oh,
kind of a it's not a religion per se, and it's more of a spiritual path where all religions are welcome, all spiritual paths are welcome as long as they kind of work together. Now, there are some, if you want to say, mythologies that we're creating around this path, related to creation, related to how a person can develop themselves, related to what angels might be and what avatars are. But the general idea is that all of this doesn't matter. It's just there to help people focus on what's really important, which is getting their own life in order by helping other people as well.
so literally about people taking a look at themselves within and just basically growing.
Yeah, yeah. How someone can just find out what their best self can be. It's based in a way on developing the spirit personality, but it takes it a step further into a more spiritual realm because developing the spirit personality focus as all patheism takes it to a higher level, which is uh, going into the spirit world itself.
Thank you for explaining that. You are also a blogger. It's something that I've been interested in, and I know that you enjoy writing, and I wanted to have you share a little bit more about your blogging.
Yes, it's on my website as well. Most of what I plan to talk about in my podcast is found on my blog. So if someone doesn't feel like listening to it or they want more information, they can read about it on my blog.
I have been hearing a ton about the quantum world. Tell me more.
The thing is with the quantum world is based on quantum physics, which is a science. But the good thing about this science is that it's showing that the spirit world does exist, that the mind can affect the physical world. There's a very interesting movie that people can find online. It's called What the Bleep Do We Know? It talks about quantum physics and how it's starting to blur the borders between the physical and the spiritual. But one of the most interesting things in that movie is something called the double slit experiment, where they were able to show that when someone was actually observing on a molecular level what's happening in an experiment, the results of the experiment changed. It was supposed to give a certain result, and whenever someone was just conducting the experiment, it would give that result. But when they tried to observe what exactly was happening, the results changed.
Now that's fascinating. And it leads me into my next topic. What is your opinion of astro projection?
I read about it quite a bit a few years ago. But the thing is that for me, what I believe in was that if we need to do something, especially when it relates to the spiritual world, it needs to have a purpose.
Mm,
Uh, if we try to leave our bodies to just go have a look somewhere else, what's the point? Just it's just a waste of energy. Or I don't know if you've heard about telekinesis, where people try to move things with their minds. If you
mm-hmm.
think about it, the energy they're expending to try and move something for a few centimeters without touching it is way more than the energy they would actually spend if they just got off the chair and moved it with their hands. It's accomplishing the same goal, but they're just wasting time, they're wasting energy trying to do something from far away. If there was a need for that power, it would just manifest itself within a
Mm-hmm.
person. But trying to go to it at the expense of a lot of other things, it's honestly just a waste of time.
Charbel, you mentioned manifesting, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Oftentimes, people are told that they need to just throw it out in the universe and then let it go. And I know that I've manifested some things, and I felt like there is. I feel like there is a formula to doing so, and I oftentimes felt like when I just let it go or didn't really think about it every single day that those things were manifested. Can you go into what your opinion is about letting it go, or is it something else that we do?
I think it's instead of saying that you're letting it go, it's more about just knowing that it's going to happen without obsessing over it. Because if you obsess over it, you're actually telling the universe that you know you don't have it. If you tell the universe you know you don't have it, then, well, the universe is going to say, yeah, you don't have it. This brings us back also to quantum physics. So, as we were saying before, that when you observe the universe, when you observe what's happening, your mind is able to affect it at a molecular level. And this causes a cascade effect. So, a small thing brings another small thing, it becomes bigger and bigger, kind of like it snowballs, and then it manifests the way you want. So, it's all about planting that very small suggestion in the universe, and then the universe incorporates it and makes it manifest. That's how it scientifically works. This is something I brushed on a lot in one of my books called Seven Secrets to Get Your Prayers Answered. It focuses on positive thinking, and it's based on something that I actually did with my students back in Lebanon. They were students in grade 7, and it was during a wave of kidnappings. And one of the students in my class got kidnapped that day. Everyone was just crying and
Wow.
just going all negative. Oh, what they're going to do to him. He's not going to come back and all that. And then I stopped them all and I explained to them how they should think about it, what they should start doing. And then each of the students had their iPads and they were writing positive messages. And then he came back and he's okay and all that. And then 2 days later, he was back. The important thing is that we need to realize that with manifestation, there is power in numbers. So when more people are focusing on something, there's more chance of it happening. This is because uh, this same suggestion is being planted more than once. So the main seed is a lot bigger than what it would have been with one person just doing it on his own. I also talked about this in another one of my books, which is The Divine Diaries, which is how God or gods came to be and how they existed in the past. Their powers, they were a manifestation of what people actually believed they could do. But then, with the arrival of the theistic religions, people slowly stopped believing in the ancient gods. So the ancient gods lost their powers. And the God that we currently have, or that most people currently believe in is just too wide for any suggestion to be planted effectively and to give him a shape or give him a power.
I see God as like he's everywhere, as being in all of us. We're all a part of God, or God is all a part of us. Like we're all connected.
Yeah, this is something I talked about in my last podcast, which is
Uh
just
huh.
about God and the spiritual world. Yeah. It's more about accepting what you see in front of you and accepting that the physical and the spiritual worlds are just mirrors. They're just showing the same thing. It all depends on how you're looking at it and what you want to see. It's something that the Hindu spirituality talks about a lot. You know, in Hinduism, they have just one god or one creative being, which they call Brahma. But Brahma, uh, he's too huge for any person to understand or to grasp. So what the rishis, what the wise elders of Hinduism, they used to say is that whenever you want something, Brahma will take the form of another god which represents that thing. So let's say, for example, you want wisdom in your life, he would show up as Lord Shiva, which is another god. But Shiva is just a manifestation, a different form of Brahma. But in this way, it's easier for people to focus because Shiva represents wisdom. So if you want wisdom in your life and you meditate on Shiva, it's closer to you than just focusing on Brahma, who is just too huge to grasp.
It is interesting, and thanks for sharing that perspective. I wanted to talk a little bit about spirituality, and I have been on a spiritual journey, and it's been really exciting and very helpful to me in my life. And I wanted to see what is your take, or can you share your experience or your understanding of spirituality?
It's something I actually worked on quite a bit because spirituality is not something that comes with uh, baggage. It's
Mm-hmm.
something very simple. It's something that you should be able to live in your daily life. It's not like a lot of people, they just do regular meditations, they do different projects or different chantings, different incense, different, like, they have a lot of rituals that they do and they call themselves spiritual. But the thing is that this is not spirituality. Spirituality is a way of life that you can live in your daily life by just being a normal person, but believing in something that is bigger than yourself, that you're a part of, that you can realize and you can help people find without actually forcing your vision of the world on them.
I believe that. Do you believe that we all chose our parents and chose like who we were gonna have as our family members, or do you think that that's not something that we choose?
Something that I said in my latest podcast is that we are all energy connected to energy through energy, and we are all God connected to God through God. The answer would actually be yes and no, because I don't see life as separate entities. The mind separates them to make it easier to understand them, but we're not separate. We're all the same. So if you want to say we chose our parents, then yes, we did. And we did choose them so that we have this kind of life. But at the same time, we're all energy. This choice isn't really a choice because we are our parents. We are it's kind of, it's not complicated. It's something that you either understand or you just need to just keep thinking about until it suddenly clicks. That's what I also talked about in karma. It's all about what karma you have and you need to work on. People think of karma as a negative thing, but it's not. It's like the most positive and useful thing that you can have. Karma is your reason for living. So when you incarnate on earth, you have some karma that you need to accomplish. And your incarnation is placed in the best position for you to be able to accomplish that karma that you have. Now, whether you do it or not, that's up to you. There's a nice anecdote I heard a while back. There was this man, and when he passed away, he had two children. One of them was a very successful business person. Everyone loved him. The other one was a thief who's always in jail, coming in and out of jail and all that. So someone came and asked the children and told them like, but you have the same father. How come one of you is very successful and the other is not? So the successful person says that, okay, my father was a drunk, he was a useless person, and I decided I don't want to be like him. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one said that my father was always drunk, he was always stealing, he was always doing this, and I turned out like him.
Mm.
So it's always our choice about what we decide to be based on who we see and whether we emulate them or we emulate the opposite.
It's all about a mindset.
Yeah, it's
And,
all about choice. You
uh-huh.
have karma, but you can decide whether you want to do it or not.
Wow. So for all the people who have that as their excuse, well, I grew up this way and I'm used to this. I didn't have anybody tell me they loved me and all that. It's like basically no excuse for
There
whatever
isn't,
hot.
yeah.
That's
The,
awesome.
the you can't have an excuse because you just put that excuse to avoid doing the hard work of changing yourself, you see, because this also brings us back to personality. You might have a wind personality who's very friendly, very communicative, but not deep at all, and it's something that's causing you trouble, but you know that this personality is what's causing you trouble. So why do you stick to it? You always have a choice, you always have the power and the ability to work on it and fix it.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. And we're always a work in progress and working on ourselves. And it is
Exactly.
true that it is on a daily basis. I
Yep.
know for myself, what I've been doing is setting an intent each day to make sure that I set an intent to make sure my day is going to be good for the things that I can control and that I'm going to have a good attitude. I'm going to have a positive outlook, and not like take everything that comes my way in a bad way. Charbel, what do you do when you have people that are surrounded around you who are negative all the time and it's an environment in which you cannot escape them? How do you help them?
Try and joke as much as possible, turn
Mm,
everything humorous, and then eventually they will see that their mindset is kind of funny.
mm,
Like this is something that happened when I took over the business I currently manage. So everyone was like, "Oh, we can't do anything. We can't fix anything." The previous manager, he did lots of he left the business in a mess, and everyone was like, "Oh, we can't fix it. This is too much. This is too much," and just took it with a joke, like, "Okay, you can't do this. Well, you can do that. Just do this. Just try that," and it's all about motivating them, but that depends on your position. So if your manager is the one that's negative, then you can try to just do your own work and isolate yourself from that mentality. But if you were the one in charge, try as much as possible to like be the change that you want the people to be in that work or in that environment.
that's the first time I heard joke as much as possible. I'm going to
Yeah,
implement that. I'm
yeah, but
definitely
you
going to
know,
add that. I'm adding it in.
yeah. Rudolf Steiner says some. I studied to be a teacher, so one of the quotes by Rudolf Steiner, he says that anyone can be a great teacher provided that they have three things: they have knowledge, empathy, and most importantly, a great sense of humor.
That's going to be one of my quotes because I love quotes. That's another one I'm going to add. I'm compiling them and I love looking at reading them. I write them on a board and then I just keep looking at it for 7 days. And then I'll get another quote that somebody quotes, and I'm like, oh, I love that one too. I am a quote girl. I know you probably heard that on
Yeah.
a couple of shows. If people wanted to look you up and find you, can you share the name of your website?
It's charbeltadros.com. CHARBELTADROS.com.
And then the name of the podcast again is called
Sign, SIGN, Spiritual Indicator for Growth Now.
And you guys check out the website. There's like books, the personality test. There's a blog. If you want to get into coaching, and there was a tab for the autism where we could learn about the Lions Club for those that's interested in that.
This is the purpose of this podcast. It's a sign. So when someone finds it, there's something in it for them.
Absolutely. Charbel, thank you so much for joining me today on Authentic Talks. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest, and you talked about numerous topics that were very interesting, and I'm sure my audience will find it interesting as well. You're welcome to come back anytime. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure. Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Wow, that was a great show, you guys. I really enjoyed it. I felt like there were some things that really resonated with me. The fact that Charbel is into synchronicities and just so much like karma. And you guys should check out his podcast. They're short, sweet, and to the point. And I enjoyed the show having Charbel, and I hope that you guys did too. There's a few things that I know that it's interesting that we could check out, and that's on that website, the personality test. There's just so many different things. He gave all of the information. And you guys, I look forward to you joining me next week. I'm really excited about coming back. I love doing this podcast and having you join me each week. Please share the podcast with family and friends. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm Shanta with Authentic Talks.